Welcome to Known and Trusted. Today, I have the honor of interviewing Carlos Rodriguez. And Carlos, I want to dive into The Ugly Underneath. Tell us a little bit about what that title means to you and what you want readers to know before they crack open that book.
Well, the title actually has dual meaning. So I used to work crimes against children. I did that for approximately 8 years in Washington State, and what it really means is the content that I dealt with. I called it the ugly, and that's everything. Just some horrific things that I saw, and a lot of people don't realize what takes place in society. So it's the underneath of society, the underbelly. So that's the ugly underneath. The other meaning is when you work those types of cases, it can affect you negatively, and if you don't watch it, it can really impact a lot of areas in your life. So for me, when I was doing that work, it did have a negative impact on me without me really realizing it. So the ugly is what was going on inside of me, and because I would just walk around taking care of my people with a smile on my face, and nobody really knew what was going on inside. So that's the duality of the title.
Well, I had the pleasure of finishing the book and I messaged you right away and said, "You've got to come on Known and Trusted. This is such an important topic." I want you to educate our listeners about what what is going on in society. Because I believe that readers, when they have an opportunity to read your book, will understand that this is happening in plain sight. Can you tell us a little bit about what those years taught you about who's committing these crimes and where it's happening?
Yes. So, well, first off, this is a dark topic. There are a lot of great things that happen out in the world, but unfortunately, there are some not so great things. And I worked crimes against children, and it was all things having to do with kids. The majority of that was sexual things that were happening to kids. So that's a lot of what I did in that space. I had no idea that that type of activity was going on and that it was happening all the time. I didn't know that there was a group of society that wanted to participate in that and do harmful things to kids. And I learned very quickly. And I actually felt a little naive, a little bit ashamed that I didn't realize that that was happening. And once I got into the task force, it was full speed ahead with my team to combat those types of things. I will say it is, unfortunately, when people want to do bad things to kids, it's super easy. The area that I worked in was a lot of people would seek out to do these things online. So on areas such as Craigslist, there's Backpage used to be a thing that was shut down. But there are a lot of different social media apps where people are seeking to do horrible things to kids, and that's the area that I worked. So it's not just the creepy guy in the park, the weird guy in the white van snatching your kids up, which actually may happen, but it's very rare. It's really sensationalized. It's not always the stranger danger. It's people that are usually known to your family. It's someone that's known to your child, to the child. And nowadays, it's in video game platforms, different areas where if your child is out there on the internet, that's really the grounds where that's the new playground, so to speak, the new park where these people are reaching out to your kids to try to gain their trust and gain access to them and have them provide them images, do other things, maybe meet with them. So that's really the area that I worked in, working those cases.
I think you do such a wonderful job in the book of describing a bit of the cat and mouse that goes on between people in your field who are trying to get the bad guys and all the ways in which they will use whatever is at their disposal to avoid detection. And I wonder if you could educate our listeners about what, for the purposes of their day to day activities, what is something that they could do that's tangible and practical when their children might be online to protect themselves and their kids.
I think the biggest thing is one, realize you can't always be with your kids, but that doesn't mean that you're defenseless. So number one that I have found is you need to have have the type of relationship with your child where you can have a conversation with them. That's number one, whether it's online or in person. Make sure you can have a conversation with them and they trust to tell you things with things such as this, if someone were to, you know, hopefully it never happens, but let's say someone were to do something to your child, you'd want it to be where they can come forward and tell you without feeling like they're going to get in trouble. Because a lot of times, what people will do when they gain access to kids and get them to do the things that they want, they will make them feel as if it's part of they made that decision. It's their choice. There's the guilt of it. Or there's the fact that if it's someone that's known to them that they care for or their family cares for, they don't they don't want that person to get in trouble, or they think that they're gonna cause some type of rift in the family. So they need to know that their body is theirs, that they have a choice, that no one can touch them in any way, and that they can have that conversation with you. As far as online, there are a number of different applications you can use to monitor your kids. I think the best thing is just having, if you're gonna have them alone in a room, be prepared that someone is gonna reach out to them. That's just what's going to happen. So if you can minimize the way that they can communicate with others. I will say as they get older, you're gonna it's a fine line because you wanna be able to trust your child and you don't want them to be the weird kid at school where they're not able to do anything. So it is a fine line. Know their passwords on their computer so you can have access, so you can see the different things and just have a conversation with them why. I've also found a good way to have a conversation with your kids is not always directly, it's through their peers. So my daughter, when she was a teenager, I didn't want her to go on a certain platform. It was called Kick because we had a lot of cases dealing with people trying to do things with kids on there. And I explained that to her. I explained to her why, but I was dad. So it didn't really matter. And I later found out that she was still going on that platform. So what I did is I actually found something online that came from someone that was her age, where something had happened, and shared that with her and her friends, and that had way more impact than anything that I had said. So now that doesn't mean don't have those conversations. You should still have those conversations, but if you can find another way where you're gaining some help from peers, showing them something that's coming from someone that's their age. Sometimes a conversation from an uncle or a cousin or a sibling may do better than from you. And that's just the way life is. I mean, I remember growing up, I didn't think my parents really knew anything. They didn't understand because they were old. It's the same thing for parents nowadays. Even though we don't always feel that we're old, we're definitely older. And working at a school district, I'm seeing that a lot with my interaction with kids. I learn a lot from kids.
Yeah, I can only imagine how you get to put your lessons into practice working in the San Diego area. Would you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and how the work that you had in the past has informed the choices you make on a daily basis in your work?
Yes, absolutely. So currently, I'm an investigator. My daytime job is I'm an investigator for San Diego Unified School District, and I love it. I still get to protect kids without seeing as much of the ugly. And I work cases. I work Title IX cases, so harassment type cases. I do stalking cases. I do dating violence, and I work on the policy side. But if we see something that rises to the level of criminal activity, we have a great working relationship with our own police department, as well as if it needs to get to the San Diego PD, we make sure that that happens. And then, in addition to that, because of my background and my boss's background, he used to be a prosecutor who prosecuted human trafficking cases. We took over the human trafficking prevention program for our district, and we built a multidisciplinary team, or an MDT. So we got together all of the different parts that could help protect our kids. So that's if it were to go criminal, we have a working relationship with the Human Trafficking Task Force, also the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force that handles that if it isn't human trafficking, but it's still child exploitation. We have partnerships with San Diego Youth Services, an organization called One Safe Place, Olive Crest. There are a number of different nonprofit organizations that provide services to our students and their families, and that's at no cost to our district. We also have relationships. I've got a meeting. I just met with someone from NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So really excited about that. So really just building our team like I used to have when I worked in law enforcement, but I'm just in a different role. So we have that in place, and then we rolled out a new website so people could go to and see what are the signs if they want training at their site. So the site administrators or people can request if they want certain training at their schools. We have an application process that they can submit, and that way we review it and make sure that the training. And then also we also ask for people who are going to provide training to our school district. They're all vetted, so we make sure that best practices are followed. So we have all that online. And then if somebody sees something, if they need help or they have a tip or they want to report a concern, we created a new form where you just go to our website, you click it, and it just walks the person through everything. So if there's an immediate threat, make sure that they call 911, they contact law enforcement. We ask if there's a disclosure of a certain activity that's happened, and then redirect them if it needs to go to law enforcement. And then there are a number of different check boxes. A person can just check to see what the different signs are that they're seeing, and then there's a space to provide information, upload potential evidence if they need to for us, and then request services. Now, since we just launched this in January, the website and the form. We've found that the majority of the concerns that come in are maybe 90 are not going to be human trafficking. They're not going to be child exploitation, but they're identifying a vulnerability. And that's very important for us because we know from working these cases that traffickers and people who prey on our kids, they look for people that are vulnerable and they exploit that. So if we can reduce that, so if it's their family lost their job and they don't have food, what are they going to do to go get that food? Are they going to go do survival sex? Or are they going to put themselves in a bad situation where someone can hold something over them? So if we can minimize that, then we are truly preventing something from happening. So that's just one example of one of the ways that we're using that. So as we're training, we trained all of our central office, we trained bus drivers, we're starting to train sites and getting the foundation right, and then work with different organizations that can train students and parents. So we just rolled that out, and the school year is about to start. I believe we're going to be extremely busy, and then
Unfortunately.
also I know, but if we can prevent some of these things from happening, absolutely. And then we're working to see the more information we have to show that this is definitely a need and needs to happen. Hopefully we can apply for some grants. Hopefully we can get some grants so we can get a full-time person doing that. Because everyone who's on my team, we all do it we have our day job at work. And then we do this in addition to it. So it's an extra, I don't want to say a task because it's more of a passion for us. So, and when someone submits one of those forms, then it goes to 4 people. So it goes to a liaison with our police department, goes to myself, my boss, and then this great lady who we work with who's helped connect us with all of these great nonprofits. She's works at the school district as well. She's a teacher there. So it goes to one of us so nothing falls through the cracks and we can make sure it gets to where it needs to go.
And it almost seems like it's a wonderful model that could be imitated in other cities because this is not unique to California. I live in Atlanta, and we're seeing human trafficking at rampant levels here in the area. So it also seems like, as a model, to have that many interconnected agencies and collaborations, that could serve to inform other people and the way that they organize their interventions.
Yes, and we are not gatekeeping at all. So if there's anyone out there that it's a district or you'd like to see that in your area, more than willing to talk about it because this should be replicated everywhere because what's at stake? It's our kids. So putting something in place that can keep them safe instead of just talking about it, actually having a structure, a team in place that can get the information, reduce the vulnerabilities, and then when there is something that needs to happen, making sure that we get it to the person or people that have the capacity to actually do something. And I think the biggest thing is you can recreate all of this, but making sure you have the personnel in place that are reviewing the concerns as they come in that know what to do and building that team. We're adding to our team because there are more people that are passionate about this. And then in turn, you just multiply. We're force multiplier.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing to see how many people with their own unique perspectives and wisdom from personal work experience or survivor stories that can serve to this mission. And I'm so impressed at what you're doing with the collaboration of all your other entities and staff and support agencies to make this kind of change. I think oftentimes it seems as if agencies and everybody's in silos and they're working individually and independently rather than putting the fences down and saying, I've got this bit of information, you've got this skill set. Let's work across as many channels and bridges as we possibly can.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I think a lot of people, I mean, I've had some great ideas, but I guarantee my great idea, someone's had the idea before. And it's a part of dropping the egos, working together as a team so that you can protect people. And in this instance, it's kids. So I think that's the big thing is we may have some great ideas out there, great, but implement it and just realize I'm sure someone else has done it before. I mean, we've been on this earth a long time. It just may be a different spin on it or more passion towards it to make it work or maybe more efficient. So I think working together and sharing that and spreading it everywhere, that's how we're going to get things done. So when people really protect things like what's your real mission? You know, is it your, oh, I have this unique program, or is it I want to protect children? So that's, I think, the big thing is doing what you can and realizing if you can't do it all yourself. So working with others, because that just makes you stronger, and just having a good team and working through the ups and downs, because there are always ups and downs.
Well, I'm so impressed at the work that you are doing. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the interconnection between human trafficking and grooming. Many of the individuals who listen to Known and Trusted are eager to learn more about the grooming process and understand how it works. And when I had an opportunity to meet you, I shared that my focus is really about demystifying the grooming process. And I wonder if you can help educate people on how grooming interconnects with human trafficking, because sometimes human trafficking is this opaque term that people are sort of confused about what it actually means, and possibly helping people to understand the connection between grooming and the process of grooming and how it can show up in human trafficking, I think is critically important to the work that both of us are doing.
So, human trafficking really is you have labor and you have sex trafficking, and it's through force, fraud, or coercion. When you're talking about minors or kids, children under 18 years old, it's going to be they don't have consent, so you don't need the coercion aspect of it, and it's anything in exchange for something of value for the sex act. When you're talking about the sex aspect. And from my experience, what I've seen in the field, usually majority of my cases was gang related or it was familial, and someone known to the child. And what they and it can be a person in position of trust. If someone could say, "Hey, my parents don't understand me, or my family doesn't understand me," and then they go to someone and they take advantage of that. I understand you. I'm here for you. It could be a boyfriend, or they feel it's a boyfriend. They used to be called Romeo pimps. I'm not sure exactly what the terminology is now because a number of the titles have changed. Or someone who's more aggressive, which that is not really grooming. That's more of a power and control. But someone can switch to that where they're giving them the things that they need. They're taking them out. They're being really nice. They're understanding, and then they can become aggressive once they have control or they've remove them from anyone else that they may know. For just straight child exploitation, if it isn't human trafficking, it could be the same thing, getting gifts for the child. It could be just, I've had cases where it was a coach and just the compliments for them. And then it turns into, oh, I can take you to a ride to school, if you don't have a ride. And then just making it so that they just feel empowered and building up their esteem, and then it turns into something else. And then there's the part of making them feel like they had a decision in it because the child starts to care for that person and doesn't want them to be harmed, so they may stick up for them. And those are all natural things, and I think a part of that process. So a lot of the different forensic interviews that I've listened to, you can see a lot of the shame or the reason why they didn't want to come forward because of that. That's a lot of what I've seen. And people who groom others are very good at what they do because that's their true identity is they are someone who wants to do harm. They want to use someone else for their own personal gain, exploit that for themselves. And that's just how they are, and they've been that way. My experience, they've been that way their whole life. So they're very good at acting in a certain way where everybody else thinks that they're normal, what most people would consider are normal. So they're very good at it. That's just like when you watch the news and you see the lady that's being interviewed and says, "Oh, I never thought that guy was such a nice guy. I never thought I'd, not him." And it's
Not in a
because they're
million
just
years.
yes, yes, or
Yeah.
I used to go to dinner with that guy, so different things like that. And that's why. And then you have people who maybe they detect something, but they don't want to accept it because of how charismatic that person is or how they feel about that person. I saw that a lot where you have people was like, I had an idea, but I never thought, and then they feel the shame because they didn't speak up and say something. So I think the biggest thing in this is if you're detecting something like that or you have an idea, your intuition or your gut feeling, however, whatever you want to call it, is usually correct. Because I mean, I don't know how many times I've thought, I probably shouldn't do this, and then I do it, and then I was like, I knew I shouldn't have done that. Usually, you're correct. So it's the same thing. If you see something that's not right, it's okay to put something out there, and that's what we like. Going back to San Diego with that forum, that's what we're saying. If you see something that's not right, send us the concern. If we're inundated, we're inundated, but then we'll sort through it. And it may not be anything, but at least we have an idea of what's going on. And it may be that missing piece. So that's what we're looking for there. But it's the same thing. That's what I've seen is usually the compliments, then that turns into the side hug, then that turns into full hug, and then it turns into well, that person touched me there. Maybe that was a mistake. And then that continues. And then the person may start to care for them. I've had cases where I had this one little girl was in a large family, didn't really, she was always looking for attention. They wasn't really getting the attention. And then she wanted to be in a life of service. So she was attracted to going to hang out with firemen or police, different things where people were serving. And then one person, who was a police officer, took advantage of that and ended up doing all these nice things for this person. And that person truly loved him, and he took advantage of that for his own personal gain. And this is someone who was in his 50s and she was 15 years old. Disgusting. And he took advantage of that. And then she felt that part of it was her fault until she was older and she realized that wasn't right. And then that's how that case started with that, without getting into all the details of it.
Yeah, when I talk about the grooming process, the shame and guilt really gets built in the third stage, which is that forbidden fruit stage, where a predator will intentionally bait a child to break the mores of their family, their religion, their society, their school, their culture, under the guise of, well, this is because I care about you, and this is because you're so pretty, and I want to take your picture because you're so beautiful, and just take your shirt down a little bit, and this won't go anywhere. And it's so important through this conversation and the other conversations you're having, and that I have the opportunity to have, that we demystify the process, because it's a set of patterns. It's a set of behaviors that repeat themselves over and over again, just in the way that you can look at those forensic interviews and say, oh, this is the same thing happening again and again. Flattery, favoritism, forbidden fruits, and fear. The fear part is not where we start. It's actually how we secure that child in silence. And the more that we can do to educate parents and coaches and adults who are working with youth, the sooner we can find opportunities to interrupt that process.
Yes, I absolutely agree. One of the things we partnered, one of the partners we have at the school district with San Diego Youth Services, they have some great programs. One of them is healthy relationships, which they focus on, what is a true healthy relationship and give the different instances. So a student will realize, let's say if it's they're connected with the trafficker that has groomed them, and then starts to control them, and realizing, okay, it's not, my boyfriend always having me check in every hour, or controlling my phone and only allowing me to have my phone for a while, or me giving them these things. And they start to realize that these things aren't necessarily correct. Or on the other side, with men, young men, having them know that purchasing sex isn't a good thing. And why? Because that's a person, you're exploiting someone. But I think that that feeds into the healthy relationships part of knowing that just because someone is telling me all these things doesn't mean I owe them this, or if I'm not okay with something happening to me, it's not okay. Even if I care for them, it's still not okay. And I need to tell somebody so that I'm okay.
I love that. What is something that you want people to unlearn about human trafficking that you think might still be a myth out in the world?
Well, that's a good one. There are a couple things. I think I actually hate the name the trafficking part of it, because most people think that you have to go from one state to another, or one city to another, or one a country into another, and that just isn't the case. It's the trafficking part, it's because it's transactional. It's for exchange for something, the sex act for the something of value, or with labor, forcing someone to do a certain activity in return for just really existing, getting food and food over your head. They're being forced to do that against their will. So I don't like that part of it, because most people think because like San Diego, we're on the border. Yes, yes, there's a higher instance of it because of that, but that isn't why. This is happening everywhere. This is happening in everyone's backyard. Most of the people there, they can be very charismatic and in getting what they want. And so I think that's a big thing. But the big one is the sensationalism of it. I love the movie Taken, but not everything's like Taken. Not everyone's getting snatched up in a van. It isn't always in Mexico or Colombia where these things are happening. It isn't always a foreign national that's doing this. It's anybody. I mean, the people who are doing this and taking advantage of our kids and our friends, vulnerable persons, they look like everyone. There isn't one look. So I think that's a big thing. And it's just not okay to purchase sex. Because when you look at that, some people want to legalize it, some people don't, but when you look at it, how do you take the exploitation part out of it? Because you still have someone who's being exploited by someone of power. The person with the money has the power over the other person. And I don't know how you look at it to take that part out of it. So I'm not a proponent of making it legal, because I don't see how you take out the exploitation part.
You just explained that it's about exchanging one thing for the product itself and turning the person into a product. And I think your comments before about what you're seeing with vulnerable youth and vulnerable adults still applies. When you look at those situations, we often find a high rate of individuals who endured some sort of childhood sexual abuse in the first place and may be a higher target for being involved in that work in the first.
Yeah, I mean, I don't I haven't met one person that I've interacted with on my end of it that says, I always wanted to, when I grow up, I want to go into a room 10 to 15 times a day with strange people and have sex with them for money. I just haven't met anyone who said they wanted to do that. And then on top of that, give that to someone else, and me not get to keep any of it, or just a small portion of it. I just haven't met anyone because that's what's happening.
And how do you think we explain this to young people when they're growing up in a time when social media is propelling a little bit of a societal, it seems to be even easier than ever to groom children online nowadays, flattering somebody through their pictures and their profiles. And it would also work with being able to give them something like e-currency on a gaming platform or providing something and sending it to them via social media apps. Can you speak a little bit about some of the challenges that you face in educating kids about human trafficking in this era of social media?
Yeah, I mean, kids want it, and that's why the traffickers, or the people who are preying on them are offering it. if I were to talk to a student or a kid or a parent, why are they offering this to you? What do they want? Because it isn't just free. Even if it says free, it isn't just free. There's something that they want in return. And you can ask that question. And you can be very direct. The other thing is, if let's say someone's in a position and they end up getting into an area where they send an image of themselves, because that's what happens a lot of times. Usually if it's a girl, usually someone they'll think they're a young boy that they're communicating with. They're not. They send an image, and then once that image is sent, you have no control over what happens to that image. It's out there. And there is the new Take It Down Act, which is great, but you have to have an organization that is going to participate with that. If you have a bad actor that has it, they can still distribute your image wherever, and you have no control over that. And then realize, if that does happen, and I know there's shame in it, and yes, that wasn't the best decision, but your life is not over. And there are people here on this earth that love you and that would prefer to have you here and work through it than you not be on this earth, because that has happened a lot, where someone will send an image, then they're being sextorted, or it's called sextortion, but extorted to provide more images. You don't have to send more images. And a lot of times what these people will do is they'll pressure, say they're going to send something out. And then if you stop communicating with them, they usually just go on to the next person, because they're just trying to get more. With boys, I've seen you can have someone, they think they're talking to another person that they're interested in sexually, then they get their face with the nude, and then they can send back a poster saying that person's a pedophile, or there's all of these things to try to get money from the boys. That's what I've seen. It's usually been money when it's men or males, and then they just send all these horrible things, and that can escalate very quickly, where that young man may take their life. That has happened on a number of occasions. So I think, just know that if that has happened to you, that they're usually, yes, it's horrible. They're usually just going to go on to the next person, but there are ways that you will overcome it. And it's better for you to be here, because there are people that care about you, and it may seem like it's the end of the world, but you're going to get through it. There are a lot of bad things that have happened to people, and they've been able to overcome and still be good, and lead a great life. So I think that's extremely important there. But
I think it's important for youth who might be listening to remember that your parents, even the mistakes that they've made as parents, still want you to be here. They would rather you be
yes.
here making mistakes, and they've made their share of mistakes. They just didn't have all the tools at the disposal that kids have nowadays, which feels like an indelible mark. And too often it's because they're using an adolescent way of thinking rather than having the perspective of an adult brain that says, this is something that I can ask for help, and encouraging kids to ask for help and then knowing where to go. Nick Mick is a phenomenal resource for youth as well as adults who are seeking support and having their questions answered, and getting in touch with law enforcement, especially in cases of sextortion or online abuses.
And I'll say, I've have friends who have taken their own life, and I wish they were still here. I wish I could still give them a hug. I wish I could still talk to them. And I think, if you've felt that or have experienced that, I wish I could go and tell them, no matter what you're going through, it's going to be okay. If, if you're having these thoughts, we'll get through it. But I just want you to know that, you not being here, I'm not okay with it, and I wouldn't be okay, and it'd be devastating for me. So I don't want you to think that, just if you're having the thought, because sometimes you don't know, but if you're having that thought, or going to that place, just know that I won't be okay, and it isn't easier, and things aren't going to be okay. So I need you here, and I think that goes a long way. I've actually had that conversation with a couple people, and then talking later, they said, that really helped me. And I think it's okay to have those conversations with people, because it's someone you care about, someone you love, and we all want to keep those people around, because I have a saying my task force used to say is, you don't get these days back. I changed it to we because we're a team, but we don't get these days back. And so take those opportunities when you have them to have those conversations with the ones you love and those that are around you and be present in the moment. When I did that work, I wasn't always present. I was physically present, but wasn't always mentally present. And that phrase reminds me of that, the times I wasn't, and reminds me now to be present. And part of that is telling people that you care about them. And if someone's not doing so good, even if you think, oh, I shouldn't talk to them, have the talk with them. They may not want to talk right away, but they'll remember that. And that could be the difference.
I love that. I wonder if we can speak a few minutes about the personal cost, the personal price that people who are in this field in whatever form, whether they work at NCMEC or ICAC or any sort of a task force or any element having to do with child protection. And sometimes we don't talk enough about the trauma that can be incurred from individuals working in this field. What tips or advice would you have to clinicians or professionals who are listening who might be feeling as if they are in the shoes that you were in, that you describe in Ugly Underneath, with feeling as if you didn't really have the personal life or the skill set necessarily to recover from all the darkness you were seeing in your day-to-day work?
First, I'll say is this work, crimes against children, human trafficking. There are a number of other things, homicide detectives. There, the work is it's overwhelming. Working crimes against children, unfortunately, there is just so much of it. I wish our task forces didn't need to exist, but they do. And they're underfunded. The people doing this work are overworked. It was myself when I first got in the unit, I had 3 people there, but one was with another agency, ended up going back, another one promoted and one retired. And then I got a couple new people, but we we were working all the time. I was a supervisor and I spent a lot of time trying to make sure my people were okay, but I didn't always follow my own advice. So if you are a supervisor, make sure you are taking time for yourself to take breaks. And for those of you out there who do this work, just know that you are not alone. If you're feeling a certain way, there are other people that are doing the same thing. It may be slightly different, may not be exactly the same, but people are experiencing this. There are other people that are experiencing the same thing that you are. For me, when I did the work, I didn't understand how it was affecting me. I didn't really realize it because I was always so busy. I compartmentalized everything. And I think compartmentalizing is a great skill to have. And not everyone can do it, but you have to have that ability to do this type of work because otherwise you can't focus on what you need to do. So having the ability and the capacity to do that is great because that way you can focus on things. The problem is if you don't unpack any of those compartments where you're storing those difficult things, it builds up over time. And eventually it's like opening Pandora's box. It's going to spill out. You're not going to have the space. And then that's going to start to impact you negatively. And that's really what happened with me. I just stored a lot of things, didn't really want to talk about it, and I just went to the next thing. And eventually, I mean, I've got photos that I could look at of myself, and I can just see the change in how my eyes look over time, where they just look kind of dead, but still have a smile on my face, but it's just not there. And then I moved to San Diego and I wasn't doing the work and I started to get healthy. And I look at my driver's license and I look 2 to 3 years younger because I'm not dealing with the same things, but I'm in a healthier place, and I realized what was going on. So I think this work will affect you. I think that's just part of what it is. But it doesn't mean that you're broken forever. And if you can take the breaks, if you have a good team with you, if you take time to do other things, it minimizes that. And just know that if you are feeling a certain way, you're not alone and it's okay. That's normal. That's how you process it. And then just as you talk to people, you start to get little parts of you back, because that's what happened with me. And then if you have a good team, you can minimize some of the parts that you lose. But this stuff it's just horrible. It's ugly, and And if you didn't feel a certain way about it and you weren't able to compartmentalize it, you wouldn't be able to deal with it. And that's why not everybody does it, because not everyone can. Just like I can't build a rocket and fly it. I can't fly a jet plane, race a race car. That's just not my thing. I'm not a structural engineer, but I could do this. And then I just picked people who had the ability to do it, and then that's what we did.
I'm so thankful for your transparency and honesty about that because we don't speak enough about the cost to the professionals behind all of this work, nonprofit and otherwise. So
Yes,
thank you very much for your transparency, not only in this conversation, but also in the book. I think that's helpful for any professional working in this field.
yes, thank you.
What is something that's giving you hope right now?
I will say. So yesterday I had a great opportunity. So the chief of our police department read my book and he enjoyed it. Yeah, it was great. And he asked me to be their plenary speaker for the department. So it's a smaller department. So yesterday I had a chance to meet with everybody there and shared my story. We talked about wellness. We talked about a lot of the things we talked about here, what that means, how it affected me. I gave some examples and it felt really good because I connected with people. I could see that they were engaged. I was a little bit nervous because you're putting myself out there and also with people that I work with. But they made me feel, I mean, if you go into a room full of cops, it isn't always, they're usually real gruff. They're, down to business, but they made me feel very welcome. And then afterwards, the conversations I had afterwards were great. And just the people connecting and just the faces, the people coming by and making their way through the room just to come and shake my hand or pat me on the back and say, "Hey, thank you for that. That was really good." So I think being able to have those moments where I'm able to share the things that I did, the good things and then the not so good things so people can avoid it, that has been great. And then I'm still in a place where I'm able to help protect kids, which feels good. So that's really cool. I really like that. So I think that's the best part. And through all of this, I'm still happy. I'm happy most days, and I still have a great relationship with my kids who are now adults. So they still want to talk to me. So that's really good because through everything, I still lost some things, but I'm all right, and so that's good. I love that. So still doing good things, still working. I don't think I'll ever stop helping in this arena. I don't think it's possible. I've tried.
I think you're stuck
Yes.
finding you found your talent and now you're living it out.
Yes.
Will you let people know where they can find you if they're seeking information about maybe implementing some of what you have done in the San Diego area in their own jurisdictions, as well as where they can buy copies of Ugly Underneath and reach
Yes.
out to you if they're interested in following up with this conversation?
Yes. So on social media, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. My handle is C_Rodriguez, RODRIGUEZ 198. Or you can just go to the website, The Ugly Underneath, and it has a link to everything there where you can get the book. The book's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, anywhere online where you can purchase a book, the book is available. Target, everywhere. And the audiobook is in the final stages, so that hopefully that will be available hopefully next week. I haven't uploaded it yet. I got to listen to what the sound engineer did because I'm not good with that stuff. So I'm excited about that for a bunch. I was at CrimeCon where we met and a bunch of people asked, "Do you have an audiobook? Do you have an audiobook?" I was like, "Okay, it's coming." So for those of you who watch this that were at CrimeCon, that's coming. And then if it's something you can get a hold of me that way, something with the school district. If you go to the San Diego Unified School, the webpage, you can find me there or C Rodriguez 12 at sandy.net if it's reference a school. But you can get a hold of me through the website. There's a contact and just tell me what it's about. And I'd be more than happy to help with whatever you need, whether it's reference the book, whether it's reference the school program. If you are in law enforcement and you want to go to some awesome conferences, there's IAHTI, it's IAHTI.org. You can go there and find out about their conferences. They're great. I volunteer for them. So I'm going to be there in Florida presenting and then also helping run the conference. They're a great group training on anti-human trafficking. And there's prosecutors, survivors, investigators. It's great. So I'm going to be doing that. And they have a membership. So if you're in law enforcement, you can become a member for free, and then you can interact with law enforcement from across the nation. If you have any issues, prosecutors, you can go there and ask for help. And then I'm going to be at Dallas Crimes Against Children. I leave this Friday, and I'll be there August 2nd through the 6th. And then after that, I'll be at the Pacific Northwest ICAC. So if in Bellevue. Oh, and then before that, IATI in Clear or in St. Pete. And that's in September, beginning of September. The Pacific Northwest ICAC is the end of September. But if you see me in person and you have a book or you want to get a book, I'll sign it for you. It'd be if that's what you want, or just have a conversation. So I always like meeting people, making new friends.
Well, Carlos, you have been such a delight. I'm so glad that our paths crossed and to learn a little bit more about the work that you're doing and your phenomenal book. And I hope everybody goes out, gets a copy, reads it, and then shares it with someone because I believe in the power of passing these things along to someone else because it's through a wider network of educated individuals that we're going to stop predators in their tracks and protect kids.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. This was great.
Of course. Thank you so much. Everybody go check out Carlos and all of the incredible work he's doing. Thank you so much for being on Known and Trusted.